Do you know what this is?
No, I didn't even look at it.
You might want to finish with that rather than start with it. But
Okay,
I'm happy to do it.
No, we'll take it secondly then. Is mixed marriage possible for just traditionally educated people? As you know, a mixed marriage is a marriage between a Catholic and a non-Catholic. It could be either, if someone is baptized Protestant, that would be mixed religion. And if they're not baptized, it's called disparity of cult. And ordinarily, in canon law, there are several things that are necessary in normal times before a dispensation allowing a Catholic to marry a non-Catholic. There are certain things that have to be met, reasons, for granting the dispensation. But on the other hand, there is also the condition of a lack of enough people to choose from. And it says in one moral theology book, if a Catholic lives in an area where there are 1,500 or less Catholics, that would be considered, maybe not enough to choose from. And another theologian said 2,000. Now, that is in normal times, normal circumstances, they would consider that would be of itself grounds to give a dispensation. In this day and age, there are so few traditional Catholics today, it would be very difficult, to say, well, 20 Catholics here got to meet with these 50 Catholics here. Even at Mount St. Michael's, how many traditional Catholics are available to get married to? I mean, the numbers are limited. 0, okay? Maybe that's what you think, Peggy. But the point to be made, though, is that what is for sure is that before the Church allows of a mixed marriage, the non-Catholic has to be instructed in the faith in a sense of knowing what the Catholic believes, and also has to be willing to agree to not interfere with the Catholic's practice of his or her faith, which would mean not practicing artificial birth control, and also agreeing to raise the children as Catholic. That's the reason why they have to go through instructions in order to understand what the Catholic believes, what he's going to be practicing, so it's not all of a sudden, I didn't know Catholics believed that, or I didn't know Catholics did this, and I would have never got married to him, or I would have never got married to her if I knew that that's what they believe. So that's the reason why there's marriage instructions, and then they both in writing have to write out that, the nuptial agreement that the children are going to be raised as Catholic. And the priest has to have a moral certainty that the non-Catholic will carry that out. And I like to tell the seminarians, when you become priest, if you're in marriage instructions, and let's say hypothetically the man's the non-Catholic, and he's very flippant, like, are you almost done talking? And where's that paper I have to sign? And doesn't even read it, or he's belligerent or whatever, or contradictory. I say, well, if you're not willing to sign this sincerely, then there's going to be no marriage. And we have to have moral certainty. And what is moral certainty? Is that an absolute certainty? No. But based on what I can see and my practical judgment of the individual, are they going to follow these, this agreement to not interfere with the Catholic party's practice of the faith and raise the kids as Catholic? And if they have a good attitude and they're cooperative, no problem. And then they get married, and that's it. But the other thing, though, is that right now it's not a matter of whether people are educated or not educated. We were just talking to the high school boys and girls this morning, and among other things, we talked about this very point and saying, you marry a non-Catholic, that non-Catholic may not believe that, if this marriage doesn't work out, that's the end. No. They may think, well, I'll just get divorced and get remarried. And so you have to be careful about who you get married to, and especially you have to understand, and I told them this, is that unless you're of marriageable age, you shouldn't be dating. Getting together to get to know someone is for adults who are capable of getting married within a reasonable amount of time, 6 months to a year. But kids today that are 13, 14, 15, 16, even 17, that's not reasonable. I think it's dangerous because it becomes an occasion of sin. So I said, if you're dating and you're not capable of getting married in a reasonable amount of time, then you're putting yourself in an occasion of sin. Is it a problem for boys and girls as a group to get together? No. On occasion, it's all right. No problem with that. But on the other hand, they are young, and temptation is strong, and that's the reason why the church does not believe in coeducation. And the other thing is that with regard to this day and age, I believe the present promiscuous dating that young people are rampantly involved in, it's going to lead them to divorce. You're getting involved emotionally with this person, drop them. Get emotionally involved with that person, drop them, and you're asking for trouble because they think this is a breakable commitment, and it's not the way it is. So that's our priest. We try to be very careful about mixed marriages, and we want to make sure, because as we tell the young couples that are about to get married, we want them to be happy. We want their marriage to work, and we don't want them to get in a situation that's not going to be a good situation for them spiritually, if things don't work out.
All right, I have a question. What is your opinion of Christendom College in Virginia and Hillsdale College in Michigan? Not very good, I'm afraid. All right, Christendom College. Christendom College was founded in 1977 by a group of Catholics, some of them converts. Dr. Warren Carroll was a convert to Catholicism. He had written, as had some others, for Triumph magazine. Some of you might recall Triumph magazine. That was founded in 1964 by the late Brent Bozell Sr., who is the father of the current quote-unquote conservative Brent Bozell of this media research place in Virginia, who bird dogs the media. But Triumph magazine was founded by Brent Bozell, who was the brother-in-law of William F. Buckley, to be a counterpoint to secular conservatism. Brent Bozell came to understand that our salvation is not in secular conservatism, which is why Hillsdale College is absolutely out. It is in Catholicism, Christ the King. And so Triumph was started as a means to promote the social reign of Christ the King. And from that, there were some very, very good scholars. And this is founded in 64, so that's just during the council. And from that spun off a number of things, including Christendom College. Unfortunately, Dr. Carroll, who's an historian, and has written some history books, some of which are not without problems, some of which are good. But Dr. Carroll founded Christendom as an antidote, as he saw it, to the rot of Catholic colleges universally. There's not one of the older Catholic colleges today that you can safely send any of your children to, ladies and gentlemen. Not one. They've all been infested. In fact, years ago, they were the breeding grounds of modernists. You take a look at Catholic University. Catholic University of America was a breeding ground of modernism in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, even though the priests and teachers there had to take the oath against modernism. It was a breeding ground. Notre Dame, same way, insofar as gradually, slowly, the infiltration. But unfortunately, Christendom College is a conciliar college. It believes in all things conciliar. And a student, the daughter of some friends of ours from Texas, told us 3 years ago this very month that during her freshman year, she was told in her theology class that you have to read the Fathers and the Doctors of the Church in light of the Second Vatican Council and the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You see, you view subsequent events in light of tradition. But this is the conciliar approach. This is the approach of Benedict. This is the approach of John Paul, that everything must, of course, be redefined in light of conciliarism. My pamphlet describing the problems and principles of Catholic theology, everything written by Pope St. Pius X at Pascendi Dominici Gregis and by Pius XII in Humane Generis, everything there describes Benedict to a T. It describes the whole theology. That theology is glorified at Christendom College, and of course, even more so at Franciscan University of Steubenville, which propagates the errors of Hans Urs von Balthasar and Henri de Lubac and Maurice Blondel and others of the so-called new theologians. So there isn't, unfortunately, any conservative Catholic college that I believe you can send your child to. I've not discussed this with His Excellency. We do have, even though Christ the King College did not succeed as an online institution, we still have our curriculum, and there's still the structure that exists. Perhaps someday, in the providence of God, we can transform that into an actual institution for students. And that's just an idea that occurred to me while we're here. And so you can raise the money for that. We have a wonderful 4-year curriculum.
I'm here as a guest. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
wanna-
I'm just not sure. Let me cover this one here.
You go for it.
There's a question for me. It's from Bishop. It's on Bishop Williamson, not from Bishop Williamson, but on Bishop Williamson. He once said that John Paul II was half Catholic in his brain and half modernist in the other half of his brain. And St. Pius X defined modernism as the synthesis of all heresies. Is it heresy to say someone can be Catholic and a heretic at the same time? Well, it's a contradiction in philosophy. The principle of contradiction. A thing can't be and be at the same time. So I mean, it either is or it isn't. And for that reason, I'd like to also get into just a little thing here, but this is a more lengthy issue, and that is with regard to Bishop Sanborn and Bishop Gerard de Laurier, also Bishop McKenna, with regard to the concept of a material pope. And Bishop Gerard de Laurier, and then later on Bishop McKenna, when he was consecrated, were espousing a position that John Paul II was materially a pope, but not formally a pope. And to understand that, just put it as simply as I can, basically they said that he was validly or legally elected so that he has the potential to become pope, but that it's because of his erroneous beliefs and such, it's blocking the authority coming from Christ, so that he can't exercise infallible teachings and such. So it's kind of a halfway point. And I believe that, having read Bishop McKenna's articles at great length in the 1980s, and also going to Connecticut to argue these points, because I was just befuddled by how could you come up with this. The points to be made is that he's concerned about, and Bishop Gerard Laurier was also concerned about, perpetual successors. And on the other hand, how do you deny that these men have taught in their official teachings, the magisterial, the universal ordinary magisterium of the Church is infallible? So how do we explain Vatican II? And for Bishop Gerard de Laurier, December 7th, 1965, when Paul VI signed the decree Dignitatis Humanae on religious liberty, there's no way he could have been pope at that moment. And then he gets into all the other things. But the problem that I have with the material pope theory is several. Because number one, if you're saying, okay, he's been validly chosen, he's in potential to be pope, but he hasn't received the authority, then how does Paul VI from 1965 on make true cardinals? How does he appoint these men to be true electors? And after that, John Paul II. If he's lost his authority, then how does he make cardinals? And when I asked Bishop McKenna that, he said, well, that's the one thing the material pope can do. And I was like, to me, that was a very gratuitous statement. Yeah. But the other thing is that I think that it's been argued, I think by Bishop Oliver Oravec, perhaps, you say to Vicantus, where do they get their authority to say he's not the Pope? But I would say, where do you get your authority to say he's only materially the Pope? I mean, we could turn it right into their direction, too. And not only that, but this idea of part Pope, part not Pope, I mean, this is a novelty. The Church never taught this way. I mean, either you are or you are not. But what's also interesting, too, in philosophy, you have what we call a hypothetical syllogism. You have if this, then that. And the way the hypothetical syllogism works is that if I grant the antecedent, if I grant the condition in the minor premise, then I have to grant the consequent in the conclusion. And in Vatican I, it says, whoever succeeds Peter in this chair holds the primacy. And I asked Bishop McKenna that, I said, this is a hypothetical. You are saying this man, John Paul II, succeeds Peter in the chair. There's no other conclusion than he holds the primacy. And, but that was, he came up with, I forget, he looked up Bishop Girardi, and Bishop Girardi said materially, not formally, and, et cetera, et cetera. But what does it mean materially, in potential? And he was saying that because he's been elected validly, but because of his false doctrines, Christ has not given him the authority, we can only wait. And he said you can't elect another pope, or the Universal Church couldn't elect him because he's already been chosen. But the other problem that position poses is this. If you're saying that he's only materially the pope, who's going to tell me that he's become formally the pope? At what point is anybody going to say, well, now he's given up these errors and now he's true the pope? But let's say it's like a light switch. Let's say one day he says, I'm wrong, Vatican II is all wrong, and I'm the pope now. And then tomorrow he changes his mind, I was wrong, I like Vatican II. I mean, on, off, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why, I don't accept that position. And I've always wrestled with, I don't know where that comes from. I know that there are quotes from theologians who talk about the schismatic bishops, like the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, because they have valid orders, they are potentially, they have the potential, if they get reconciled to the church, to be, part of the apostolicity of the church. They have it in potential, their ordination, their consecration as bishop, but they don't have it formally. But they only have, they think they talk about having materially, they're in potential. If they were to reconcile with the church and recognize the Pope, then they could be, in that position. And that's the only aspect of formal and material that I've ever seen. But the idea of applying it to the Pope is, I think that's unprecedented. I've never read anything on that. And it's, I think it's kind of a novelty. Father Cicada has written something about Bishop Williamson. Bishop Williamson recently came out with a statement saying that John Paul II, he's infected with his mind, his brain is infected with modernism, and modernism is a disease, so he's ill in mind, so he's not responsible for what he's doing, and therefore he's still the Pope. He's just a sick-minded man. And so Father Cicada calls it mente vacante, vacant mind or something like that.
He was talking about Benedict. In that instance, he was talking about Benedict.
Oh, I'm sorry, Benedict, right. Benedict the 16th. But this was written about John Paul II and half.
And he said the same thing about John Paul II about 4 years ago.
Ah,
and so this is just a reiteration of the empty mind theory.